Now, those ridiculous school climate strikes are back. People encouraging kids to miss school on Friday and protest about the climate, apparently. I don't know what their point is. I don't think the climate will change because of a protest. And if we shut down our whole country, it wouldn't change the climate one iota either. So who knows what the protests are for, except to demonstrate, I suppose, the ignorance of the kids and those who inform them. One of the Greens raised this in Parliament today.
Most high school students can't vote, yet the decision of your government to push more coal and gas is harming their future. That is a big reason why this Friday students will hold a school strike for climate, gathering in their thousands in cities and towns across the country. Minister, do you support the students being able to strike this Friday and to leave school to protest for climate action and against more coal and gas?
My view is, I hope pretty uncontroversial, that school students should be at school during school hours.
Yeah, even the Labor Education Minister can see that school might be more worthwhile for these kids. Let me bring in our counsellor, psychiatrist and commentator Dr Tanveer Ahmed joins us from Perth, and on the desk here with me, child and adolescent psychologist Clare Rowe. Good to see you both. That was good from Jason Clare, wasn't it? No, turn up at school, guys.
The most uncontroversial thing should be kids in school. Yeah, Jason Clare. So, yeah, good on him for saying that.
Yeah, but Tanveer, the Greens and a whole lot of others suggest, though, it's actually a good thing for these kids to exercise their civic rights.
Yeah, it's become a real precedent, hasn't it? I know we might touch on a story about calling kids to protest for Palestine as well. It's become this sort of real niche that if you're, I guess, a combination of virtue signalling, but also what certain groups will determine as sacred and appropriate to ditch school enough. You know, this issue is important enough. It's what we designate as sacred, and therefore it can override school. It's become this real problematic precedent and a bit of a ritual to show what you think is, beyond, it sits above the mundane and day-to-day, essentially what's sacred. So I think we should be very wary about this kind of thing building.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and that's accentuated by this. I think we've got a graphic of this. This is a letter that kids can download and sign and whatever and take to school, and it essentially says that, you know, they're having the day off, they're sick because the planet is sick and the climate is more important. I get worried. We've talked a lot, Claire, about the hysteria that kids get involved in when it comes to climate. The fact that they're encouraged to protest, it just feeds into that hysteria. I mean, they obviously don't know enough about the issue. If they're thinking that a protest in Australia is going to do something to save the planet or make their lives better, it's just nonsensical.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, at worst, it's a recruitment drive by the Greens.
Yeah.
You know, it's a recruitment drive to get them this young because they don't understand it, just like they don't understand other issues. So it raises hysteria. It feeds into a developmental period as a teenager where you want to rebel against someone who's, you know, knows sense talking to you. So it feeds that, and that you have a voice and you need to get out there and use that voice, and they love that. So, of course, I mean, it's a similar one like Tanveer said. You know, there are planned marches in Melbourne, pro-Palestinian marches. Well, these kids, you know, if they want to learn about this, would do well staying in the classroom and learning about the very complex history of the Middle East and maybe being able to locate it on a map and, you know,
that
things
would be
like
really
that.
useful. I think we can see from a lot of the media coverage that a lot of people covering it don't really understand the history of this issue yet. Yeah, they're encouraging children to skip school and go out and march in a pro-Palestinian protest, and the Victorian Premier, Jacinta Allen, she doesn't seem to think there's a problem with that.
Being able to come together and hold a rally, a peaceful rally, depending on the issue that you're concerned about or the issue that you're exercised about, that's a fundamental principle of our democracy. As we consider this issue of attendance or otherwise, that we give students and schools the respect and the space to work through these issues at the local level.
Cheap is a fundamental principle of democracy. That's for adults, I think. That's for 18-year-olds. I think school kids need to do what's best for their schooling, and they need to follow some instructions, most often from their schools and their parents.
Look, I'm all for civic action and, you know, kids learning about I guess, their civic duties and responsibilities. But yet I think parents would be aghast at that statement. Like hearing your Premier basics. I mean, there may be some kids cheering, but I mean, God, there'll be kids looking for all manner of protests. They'll be looking for a list every week going, what protests on today that I can join? So it is. I think it is a really bad precedent. And going back to what Clare was talking about, climate change, again, it's setting up certain issues as not technical problems or even kind of rational political problems, but they're either apocalyptic or religious in nature or sacred in nature, and that's when they're designated, appropriate for you to take a day off and storm the streets.
Yeah, look, as if climate change is not difficult enough for people to get their heads around, marching into the most complex diplomatic and strategic issue in the world, in global affairs, and treating it as a simple matter of waving a flag for Palestine is irresponsible, isn't it? At the moment, especially when we see such division and hatred around this issue.
Developmentally inappropriate for kids, and we think that we're raising these eco-warriors or these globally conscious, engaged young people, and actually our children are the most stressed out, the most anxious, the most depressed, the most behaviourally out of control than ever before. And so we're failing them. It's not working. And you're right, it's simplistic in nature. And, I think for the Victorian Premier to say something like that is downright dangerous. For a government-funded education department to support such a contentious social political, a debate by encouraging kids to take the day off school, potentially then encourage them against their parents' will, which kids will want to do, is just downright dangerous.
It is nuts. Let's stick on schooling, though. I want to talk about a school in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales, Catholic school. It's a Catholic college, and it's suggesting that kids should work from home on Mondays. 4 days of turning up at school, they'll be set some extra work to do from home on Mondays, the work from home schooling. This is where we're going, Tanveer. The school's saying, this will help them develop for the world where you do a lot of work from home. This is not on, is it? I mean, if you're a parent there, want the kids there 5 days a week, please.
Minus the protests. Minus the
protests.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to work from home one day. But as you say, they're going to protest another day. I mean, Parents will be pulling their hair out. But this sounded like, from what I could tell, it was driven in partly due to staff shortages. So that's a real problem. It's almost like they're not necessarily saying this is either developmentally or has a rational basis for the idea, other than, look, this might help us deliver the classes you need. So I can see why parents would want to move them out.
They're retrofitting that argument.
Yeah, so look, I get you're right. It's almost like, should kids be learning about WFH, work from home, from a young age? That's almost what this is alluding to.
It's too much.
We forget, a lot of schooling is the social skills, and the reality is a lot of schooling, what we learned during the pandemic is also childcare, like it or not.
Yeah, well, it's the social skills and it's the discipline of having to turn up. So, all right, Mondays work from home, Fridays you go to a protest, Wednesdays will be sport, and I suppose Tuesdays will be a pupil-free day.
That's right. It's
teaching's getting easier.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk to adults from their work from home days and they love it. Why? Because they get to put a load of washing on, they get to go pick up the kids from school at 3:30. It's a bit of a flexi day. It's great. But their productivity isn't as good for most adults I talk to. And we're talking about children. We're talking about 15, 16-year-olds. And if you've got teenagers at home, this school is suggesting this will help them be able to transition into the real world and work from home. There will be no work done.
No,
and that is absolutely, if that's the case and there's shortage of teachers, call it for what it is.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Be upfront about it. Thanks again, Clare and Tanveer. Appreciate it. Tanveer Ahmed and Clare Rowe.